Dang, haven't heard that intro in a minute. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Triple Play Fantasy YouTube channel. Bringing you guys a football video for today, a live stream talking Week 4 NFL betting, fantasy football start sits, DFS, kind of getting into the ins and outs of Week 4 here. I'm going to be here for probably the next 20 to 30 minutes or so, depending on the type of people coming in and their questions. So if you want to make sure you get your question answered, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Make sure you guys leave a comment in the video, and we'll make sure we get to those questions, whether it be during the stream or even just throughout the next couple days before kickoff. We'll answer those comments here for you. But tonight we're kind of just going to go through Thursday night football game. We'll go through some of the main slate on Sunday, talk about maybe some bets that I like personally, talk about maybe some tough fantasy football start sit decisions depending on your league. Unfortunately, I changed my Twitter picture, so I realized that now we can't go live to Twitter, which kind of sucks. But so we'll be relying strictly on Facebook, strictly on YouTube for comments and all that type of stuff. So we'll start with, let's get things going here. Thursday night football game. The Dallas Cowboys are going to visit the New York Giants. And looking at some players in this game that I think are going to do really well. Start with the obvious and CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb's coming off of subpar 4 catches for 67 yards in their last game, also complete with a tirade on the sideline. And I think it's one of those squeaky wheel games coming for CeeDee Lamb. Not only did he dominate the New York Giants last season, but if you also are part of the RPO fantasy football Discord, where I'm currently doing offensive props for them, I dropped CeeDee Lamb as one of my picks this week here, and in terms of for betting. And one of the reasons why I like CeeDee Lamb so much is if you look, going back, first of all, he's hit his line at the time was 79.5 receiving yards. I believe it's now about 80.5. So it's kind of fluctuated the last couple of days, but he's hit the line against the Giants in 3 of his last 4. He's faced them. He's also covered that line in 5 of his last 6 Thursday night football games. On top of that, we talked about the tirade, and I think that he's going to get heavily targeted in this one. And PFF said the Giants are tied for the worst in defensive success, 33.3%. And the third worst first down plus touchdown rate, 66.7% with man coverage. So anytime they're going to run man coverage, they're going to be in a huge problem for them. They're running man coverage about 21st in the league right now. So it's not like they're running man coverage like the Jacksonville Jaguars rate, but they are running, when they do run man coverage, they're right now one of the worst teams in the NFL. They're also, CeeDee Lamb is averaging a 42% target per route run versus man this season, which is a top 5 rate in the NFL. I think CeeDee Lamb is my favorite prop. His receiving yards in this game, not far behind it, I would also look at Malik Neighbors. I got his line at 67.5, and right now it's up to about 72.5 on most books. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm super confident when it gets over in the 70s. I think he should get it, but I felt very confident when I got it at 67.5 because I think he'll still have double-digit targets going his way. I do expect the Cowboys to try to double him and make him a priority on defense, but when you're that talented as Malik Neighbors is, they're going to find ways to get you the ball. Screen passes, scheming up versus zone. They're going to make sure he gets the ball. So I like that tonight. Daniel Jones is rushing. Started out at 29.5. It got up to about, I think, 31, 32.5. I'd still play that. Daniel Jones has done really well at home rushing versus the Dallas Cowboys. He's covered in his last 2 games versus them. And Dallas's pass rush is so good that I think he's going to have to step up in the pocket and take off. So that's the third prop I'm playing in this game. If you're looking for a long shot play, one of the things I did sprinkle in a bet tonight was a Tyrone Tracy touchdown. There could be a chance that game script goes against the Giants here, where either the Cowboys blow them out or it gets to the point where the Giants have to throw. And at that point, Tyrone Tracy, I think, is the more explosive back. Obviously, if something happens to Devin Singletary, then he steps right in. But I got him at plus 800 odds for an anytime touchdown. That, to me, is too good for a backup running back on any slate. You could put on a main slate, on a standalone slate, any backup running back that has plus 800 odds, which was I got on FanDuel. I'm going to play that every time. Again, whether it's an injury or whether it's game script to have the better pass catching back in there. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for Tyrone Tracy to score tonight, as we just saw with Ray Davis for the Buffalo Bills. Shout out to DMendy, who cashed that with the Ray Davis anytime touchdown bet he hit on Monday. Looking towards the main slate here, my favorite play of the entire week before the injury report popped up today was Nico Collins. So keep an eye on the injury report right now. He popped up with a hamstring injury. That's one of the things that's going to leave me a little bit wary of it. I got this line at 71.5. FanDuel are being cowards, and they still have not put his receiving props on there. So I've been really annoyed about that, waiting, hoping that they would open his line lower on FanDuel. But on Bet365, it opened up the beginning of the week at 71.5 on Tuesday. Either Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. I got it at 72.5. It is now up to 80.5. So that line jumped dramatically, which I figured it would. Just for anybody that does betting out there that's unfamiliar, I would just check every day for when a prop is going to get posted, because as the week goes on, usually barring anything in terms of injury, the prop numbers are usually going to go up. So if you can get on it early, that's usually the ideal way to make sure you can maximize the value of these props here. But as I was researching Nico Collins, Jacob Gibbs did a really good just thorough breakdown on Twitter. If you don't follow him, at JA_Gibbs_23, just talking about basically what I look at when I'm looking at props from the offensive side of the ball. And that's a lot of times how wide receivers do against man versus zone coverage. I think that's usually the biggest telltale sign, or what they're allowing in the slot versus outside, things like that. I think those are really good ways to look at how you can kind of maximize value. So like, for instance, George Pickens right now, who's been covering a lot of slot snaps, he'll be going against the Colts DBs, who are really bad against the slot wide receivers this year. So like stuff like that, where you can really kind of get an edge there. But going back to Nico Collins, the Jags actually utilize man coverage more than 50% of the time, which is the top rate in the NFL this season. Nico Collins is the top graded wide receiver against man coverage. The Jags are also one of two teams that have an 80+% usage of using press coverage. Nico Collins is number one in the league against press coverage. This is combined with the fact that the Texans just got blown out against the Minnesota Vikings. They're going back home against the division rival in the Jacksonville Jaguars, on top of the fact that Tank Dell was still not practiced this week. If Nico Collins plays, to be completely honest with you guys, I have a bet in at 72.5, but I also put in multiple bets of him having 100+ yards and a touchdown, because I think that, to me, that's the type of day I'm expecting him to have if things continue to progress as they are, especially if Tank Dell doesn't play. Obviously, let's keep an eye on that injury report for Nico Collins, but it's going to be something. If he does play, I expect a big spot for him there. I think the most anytime touchdown play I've played this week is Aaron Jones. He has heavy usage, and he's going against his former team in Green Bay. If you're telling me that they don't have a lot of goal line stuff planned for him, feeding him tons at the goal line, or just doing everything they can to get him a touchdown against his old team in Green Bay. And again, this isn't like the guy that's been inefficient this season. It's not like a guy that's a backup player. He's been a top 24 running back for fantasy. So I'd expect them to try to make sure they get him a touchdown in this game. Another play I've been looking at that just released a prop today finally was for the Arizona Cardinals and Commanders. They've been really stingy with releasing lines for that prop, I guess, or for that game, I guess, because they're not sure about Trey McBride. And I just don't like when we're going to Thursday night football and not all the lines are out yet. That's one of the things that I think is most annoying when you're trying to put bets in. And Marvin Harrison was someone I was looking at all week. This season, I think it's pretty much take the opponent wide receiver one versus the Commanders, assuming that they're a somewhat talented wide receiver. We've seen every single week, Malik Neighbors went for over 102 touchdowns. We saw Mike Evans and Chris Godwin combine for 3 touchdowns and over 100 yards. We saw Jamar Chase, who I bet and won 1,500 on last week. I bet him to go for 101 and 100 and a touchdown, and he went for 118 and 2. That's the way we're going right now this season. So Marvin Harrison opened up with the 67.5 receiving yards line. I would take that. But I started shifting more of a focus towards Kyler Murray, who right now opened up on FanDuel at 230.5 for his passing yards. I'll take that. But you can get that better on ESPN Bet. It was 223.5 over on ESPN Bet. I would much rather go there to bet that. I want any part of the Cardinals passing game, because if for some reason Marvin Harrison doesn't do his thing, I think Kyler Murray will still get there through the air. So I started shifting a lot of focus while most of the books don't have Marvin Harrison up. I went straight to Kyler Murray for his over passing yards. That's another prop I looked at today. Our guy Vinny in the chat says Michael Wilson anytime touchdown. I like it. I wish it was Greg Dortch, but I mean, he had 8 catches last week, so he's definitely looking like a very valuable piece of that Cardinals offense that you could definitely target there for sure. Staying in the passing realm of things, another prop I really like this week was Caleb Williams over his passing yards. I believe it was over 224.5 over on Bet365 minus 110 when I looked at it earlier today. Still don't have it up on FanDuel, unfortunately. But I think this is one of those things. Everybody looks at the Commanders and they look at how bad their pass defense is. Well, the Rams have been better, but not crazy much better. The Rams are 31st in the league in pass defense this year, and they're kind of the sneaky spot to target opposing quarterbacks. You also have the Rams, who don't play as well when they're not at home inside a controlled dome, and them having to go to Chicago here. Caleb Williams seeing Jaden Daniels, what he just did on Monday Night Football. You don't think he's going to be ready to go out there and prove he was worth the number 1 pick. I think this is a good get right spot for Caleb Williams here. I looked at Roma Dunze a little bit here to play as a prop, but he popped up on the injury report today. So just like I talked about with Kyler Murray, I'm more just want to take the guy throwing the ball this week, maybe not target a specific wide receiver. So Kyler Murray, Caleb Williams are the 2 quarterback props I'm playing this week. I'm playing their passing yards and over 1.5 passing touchdowns for both those guys this week as my top 2 quarterback plays. And again, I will play Marvin Harrison in that Cardinals game, Nico Collins in the Texans Jags game. And so those are the ones I've and then Aaron Jones was the touchdown play that I've played the most. Tonight, again, I mentioned CeeDee Lamb was my top play tonight. His receiving yards, I put a half a unit on that. Also did an anytime touchdown parlay of Lamb, Neighbors, Tyrone Tracy, who I mentioned as the anytime touchdown long shot, and Jake Ferguson. Those 4 together, 25 brings back like $3,000. In terms of other plays I've kind of sprinkled in this week, Breece Hall to score, but if you didn't get it early in the week, now it's like minus 180, minus 160. I got it at like minus 138 earlier this week. He's, I think, a good bet against this Denver rush defense, and Denver has a pretty good pass defense with Patrick Surtain. So I think Breece Hall gets in the end zone this week. I think Travis Etienne's a sneaky bet to get in this week. I have him in a couple slips as an anytime touchdown bet here. I think Chris Olave, I like him in the Saints and Falcons game. I bet his yards over his receiving yards here. I think that's one of the better plays you can go to here on the slate. I would say overall, this is probably the best slate we've had in a few weeks. I think there's a lot of potential shootout spots here when what's been a really poor offensive start to the season. So I think there's a couple nice games here that can lead to a lot of shootouts, a lot of points, and a lot of yards, which is good for anybody that, like myself, likes to bet a lot of overs on props here. But that's where I would go for this week on those. I'm just scrolling through the NFL games here to make sure that there wasn't any other props that I really wanted to bring up for this show. Or again, like it stinks because I know we're not going to get as many start sick questions now that Twitter is not connected here for some reason here. But I mean, I think overall this week, again, it's a good slate. Again, Vikings, Packers, Aaron Jones is my favorite play in that game. The Eagles, Bucks, I haven't played any props from that game, mostly because a lot of them have been unlisted on a lot of sites, but I read that Mike Evans, they're trying to get him more involved this week. So I may look at Mike Evans, maybe look at his receiving yards. That would be something I would look at. I haven't bet that myself. Jamar Chase, I think it's another smash spot for him against the Panthers. I think everybody's going to look at Zach Moss, but I actually think Jamar Chase has another really nice game here against this Panthers defense. So I would look at Jamar Chase and I would take his over receiving yards as well. George Pickens is a huge one that I didn't touch on a ton. I know I mentioned his role in the slot going against the Indianapolis slot corners. His line was 52.5 on FanDuel, and I put that in as a couple of places that I bet. So make sure you take George Pickens. I think he's a great spot here against the Colts slot receivers or slot corners here. So I would go in that game. Caleb Williams, I talked about in the Bears game. That's where I'm targeting there. Marvin Harrison, Kyler Murray. Jaden Daniels is always a great play. But Marvin Harrison and Kyler Murray are the two I've been playing the most in the Cardinals Commanders game. I looked at the Patriots and the 49ers, and I have a two touchdown parlay that has Jordan Mason in it. And I've looked at Jawan Jennings because I think he's not a bad play here as well. But I would have to say that game I've mostly been staying away from. If you're going to play anybody on the Patriots side, it's Demario Douglas, who the Niners have actually struggled in the slot versus slot receivers a little bit this year. So he might have one of those double-digit PPR games. So if you're playing DFS, that might be a really cheap guy that you can plug in there and save you value in some other places. The Browns-Raiders game I have not touched personally, but I do know Jerome Ford is questionable. So Deonta Foreman could be in for an expanded workload, which if you play DFS, I'm sure he's dirt cheap. I'm probably just not touching anybody in that game. I think it's going to be really ugly. Probably Aiden O'Connell at quarterback. Or, I mean, I think Gardner Minshew starts, but I would think Aiden O'Connell probably comes in at some point in that game. The other big bet going on the main slate, the 1 and 4 o'clock slates here, and the last prop I'll talk about tonight, Travis Kelce. Give me all the Travis Kelce this week. Over 4.5 catches, over 46.5 yards, anytime touchdown. I have bet Travis Kelce a ton. Derwin James not playing in this game for the Chargers is a huge deal because he matches up with Travis Kelce one-on-one a lot of times and helps contain him. They have nobody in that secondary to contain Travis Kelce. And you have on top of that, all the stuff this week that have been coming out about they got to try to get Travis Kelce the ball, get him going. And, Patrick Mahomes talking about how basically that's why Rashee Rice has been having such a good game or so many good games is because they're trying to take away Travis Kelce, but Rashee Rice has been eating. So I think this is the Travis Kelce get right game. Does he go for 100 yards? Probably not. Does he have 5 or 6 catches for 50 and 60 yards and a touchdown? I do think so. So I'm taking over Travis Kelce, everything, over receptions, over yards, anytime touchdown. He, along with Nico Collins and along with Marvin Harrison Jr., along with the quarterbacks, he's going to be in that core group of players that are in a lot of my bet slips. So if he does well, should be a good week for me. If he doesn't do well, then it'll cost me a lot of bet slips. But if there is a week for him to get right, it's against this Chargers defense without Derwin James. So Travis Kelce, all his overs will be another player I'm looking at for this week here. And that'll wrap us up for this. And again, I'm sorry for those that did potentially have start-sit questions that would have answered from Twitter. Just unfortunately, when you change your picture, then you don't get to stream it until it re-verifies your account. So just make sure I'll be there on Sunday on Twitter live for people to, write in the thread that I put out every Sunday morning and ask their start-sit questions. So make sure you put it in that thread, and I'll try to get to as many as I can, like I do every week. If you have any betting questions, I would appreciate if you guys go to the RPO football Discord. They've been very nice. They brought me on for this season. And not only do they get my props first, usually days before I post to Twitter, sometimes I don't even post the props I put on Twitter because I want people in the RPO Discord to get that only play on there. So make sure you guys on here, leave like and comment, subscribe if you're not subscribed. And if you would like more of this down the road, please let me know in the comments below. But thanks guys for hanging out with me, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.